Hello, today we're going to look at rounding decimals. So before I get into that, let's just look at some terminology. And the term I want you to understand is the word decimal place, okay? Because I am going to refer to the number of decimal places, and that may not make sense to you unless you know what the word means. It's always going to be referred to in the question. It'll literally say, round your number to 4 decimal places. So what's that about? It's actually a digit that appears after a decimal point. So if there's lots of digits that appears after your decimal point, then you have lots of decimal places. So let's have a look at these two here. So I can see that I have 2 digits that follow after the decimal place. That's got 2 decimal places. The number down below that has 3 digits that follows after the decimal point. And so this one here has 3 decimal places at the moment. Let's move on. Rounding a number is basically like abbreviating the word or shortening it. So for example, abbreviation can become abrev for short. Afternoon in Australia, sometimes I hear people call it arvo, which is much shorter. Avocado is avo. When it comes to the numbers, it looks like this. So here I've got this number gets shortened to this number, and that's according to 2 decimal places. Now you might see this notation where they might have the answer is presented with this bit here in brackets. It's often pushed across, so there's plenty of space between your number and this statement here. It's just there to communicate to the reader that you have rounded the number and how many decimal places you have, so decimal places, how many of those you've actually rounded to. All right, and so forth. I've got another example here of another number that's been rounded to 2 decimal places. So let's look at the process. Right. I've written here, typed out a question here, just so it sort of simulates the question. The question will tell you your target. So this target in this example is 2 decimal places. And obviously here's the number that we're working with. So I think it's about 3 steps really. So let's take a look. Step 1 is to cut. So you're going to cut your number and trim off the excess. So 2 decimal places, that's going to be this and this. That's 2 decimal places. We need to trim it off at this point, so cut it there. So this is my cut. All right, now I'm going to copy and paste this thing here. So copy, paste. All right, step 2, you are going to examine your critical digit. Which one is your critical digit? Well, your critical digit is going to be the digit that appears, the first digit that appears after your cut. Okay, so it's going to be this one here, right after the cut. And you're going to look at it. You're going to look at it really hard. You're going to look at it and go, is this number big enough to change my answer? Okay. So when it comes to rounding a number, all right. So you might be familiar with rounding. Let's say I got the number 42, and I might say round this number to the nearest 10. And you go, oh, that's easy. That just becomes 40. All right. Okay. So what if I had, what about 19? Round this to the nearest 10. You go, oh, well, that's just going to be 20. Okay. So you're following the basic rules here, where you're looking at this and seeing if it's big enough to sort of round up this to the nearest number. Okay. And there's going to be a cutoff point. Okay. And that point is the cutoff point is going to be 5. Sorry, not cutoff. I guess you call it the deciding point, where if this critical digit is 5 or larger, it will change this number, okay, the last digit of your keeper digits, okay? So in this occasion, 9 is plenty big, so this one's actually going to get bigger. So I'm now going to do the rounding steps. So the answer is going to be 23.5, and what's 1 bigger than 3? Well, it's going to be 4. So 23.54 is the answer. Move on. Let's do some examples. I think you'll start to see how the process works if I do a bunch of them. I'm also going to try and throw some slightly different types of questions at you, and hope that we can sort of learn things along the way. Here we go. Round this number here to 3 decimal places. Okay, so we've got to make our cut after 3 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, cut. Now we look at our critical digit. This is step 2. Step 2 is to look at your critical digit. Is it big enough? Is it 5 or larger? It is not. Therefore, it's not big enough. It's not big enough to change this digit. So we leave it alone. So the answer is 1.751. Moving on. round this number to 0 decimal places. Now I chose this, this is unusual, okay, you probably won't see that in an exam or anything, but you can still do it. So where is the 0 decimal places? Where do I cut that one? Well, you cut it here, so that there are no decimal places when you're done. Now we look at our critical digit. Is it big enough? Is it 5 or larger? In this case, no, it's not big enough, therefore it's not going to change this digit. So the answer is going to be 108. Let's look at this one. 3.89, round it to 1 decimal place. Okay, so I've got to cut it here. And then I look at my critical digit. Is it big enough? It most certainly is. It's larger than 5. And so it's going to change that 8. It's going to add an extra 1 to that. So what's 1 bigger than that? It's going to be 3.9. So that's our answer. And I should probably write, 1 decimal place next to it to show that I'm communicating that I have rounded the answer. So here I got 0 decimal place, and here I had 3 decimal places. All right, last one here, a little more tricky. Round 15.999 to 1 decimal place. Okay, so I got to cut it here. And now I'm going to look at my critical digit. Now, a mistake I've seen in the past with some students, let me go with pink here. This one here does not matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't influence our decision at all. So this could be a 0 if I wanted to. Let's say the question could be 15.99001. It doesn't matter because these ones here are not the critical digit. They don't matter. They don't have any influence whatsoever. So please don't make that mistake. I have seen it happen before, not sure why. Okay, so we're looking at our critical digit, which is this one. Is it big enough to change this one? Absolutely, because our critical digit is larger than 5, and therefore it's going to add an extra 1 to our keeper digit here, which is also a 9. So what's 1 larger than that? Well, that's 10, right? So, what do I do? Well, that means I'm going to go up to here. I'm going to add 1 there, and this becomes a 0 to make 10. Do you see that? That's a 10. Do you see that? So what is our answer going to be? Well, it's going to be 1, okay, and that's going to make a 6. 1 plus 5 makes 6. Then that 0 carries down, and the answer is 16.0. That's everything. I hope you learned something, and if there's any problems, let us know as teachers, and I'll catch you in the next video.